What can you tell us about what into this decision by the Ivy League?
Ivy League Executive Director Robin Harris told me yesterday that this was based on campus policies. The 8 Ivy League campuses' COVID-19 policies, she said, made it impractical to have fall competition. She pointed out that there were travel restrictions for coaches, players, faculty, staff. There's also stringent social distancing measures on campus, along with restrictions for visitors and gatherings of no more than 25 to 50 people at some places. So this just made it, frankly, impossible to hold fall competition.
All right, and so, Rece, many people around the country might be thinking, well, that's their decision, and while we respect the Ivy League, we don't really care that much about Ivy League sports. But why is this significant well beyond just that part of the country?
I think because, Greeny, a couple of things. The trickle-down effect that it's going to have on scheduling for some other programs, but I don't believe it's the same thing as during the basketball season when the Ivy League was sort of ahead of the curve in terms of canceling their season, and then ultimately everything in college basketball ended. I talked to several people over the last several days anticipating this decision, and while they respect the Ivy League, and there no doubt will be some presidents who will be cognizant of the fact that they could be viewed as not caring as much about the academic mission as the athletic one if they don't follow suit with the Ivy League. They didn't believe that it would have a huge impact on them. The one thing the Ivy League did better this time in announcing this than they did in the spring was at least they let their coaches and athletes know ahead of time and didn't just put out a blast on Twitter and let everybody find out that way.
Heather, what more can you tell us?
Well, the Power 5 commissioners and athletic directors that I've talked to have echoed those sentiments, no doubt. But I've also been told by the Patriot League commissioner, you better believe that university presidents at every level are going to be paying attention to what the president at Harvard has to say about it. And as powerful as the Power 5 commissioners are, those university presidents, whether or not campuses are open and students are on campus, are going to be pretty much the key in all of this decision-making process.
All right, Paul, what do you have to tell us this morning? As you take in all this information, what do you make of it?
It is a dreadful indicator for college football, Greeny. And I think what you heard Sankey say there a minute ago was fascinating. I mean, he's talking about reality now, and I think it's about time that commissioners and athletic directors and football coaches start dealing with the reality. And the reality is that the college football season is slipping away. They can hold on hope, but if you look at what is going on in the country, it is dreadful news. And yesterday, with not only the Ivy League story, but the story at Ohio State and North Carolina shutting down practice, at least temporarily, it was the worst day college athletics has had since that March day when the whole world shut down. And I don't really see it getting any better.
Well, you see that note there from Hembo. The last spring college football game that was played in the Ivy League was 1877. Paul, what was that day like? I'm just kidding. Rece, let me come back.
Listen,
Rece, let me come back to you.
It was.
I'm sorry. We need a moment of levity. This is obviously a downer of a story, and just trying to have a little fun here. Rece, what are your thoughts on this, on the notion that if they cannot play these games in the fall, that football is significant enough for any number of reasons, particularly financial, that they will try to move them to the spring? In your view, Rece, as someone who is around this as much as anybody, how reasonable an option is that?
I think it all depends on what's going on in society. And to reiterate what Paul said, I think when you listen to Greg Sankey, it's very different than what you heard a few weeks ago. I had a senior administrator one place call it a few days ago bruised optimism, and I've sort of co-opted that phrase. In terms of playing in the spring, you just don't have any guarantee yet that it's going to be better then. But if it's viable at all and can mitigate some of the financial losses that would incur if they weren't able to play in the fall, then certainly I think they would try to give it a spin in some fashion to do it in the spring. How feasible it is, I have my doubts about that, Greeny, because of a number of things. One, the most obvious is the proximity to the draft, but I think even more important than that is the number, if you tried to play it in spring, the number of games that you would have in a short period of time, because one would assume if you can play a season in any form in the spring, then you would be able to play in the following fall. That's a lot of games in a short period of time. And so I have some. I'm a bit skeptical about the idea, but I have no doubt that if it is safe and the only way it can be done, that some would be open to giving it a shot.
Heather, what would it look like if they tried to do it in the spring? What's the best guess as what it would look like?
I've been told that the best guess would be March, April, May for the season, a shortened season, probably conference only. But then you're looking at preseason workouts in January, which, as Rece pointed out, is problematic because there's no guarantee that anything's going to be better off at that point than it is right now. So, look, I'm told it's not the first choice. It's not the second choice. Is it doable? Yes, but there's certainly a great reluctance to do it for every reason that Rece mentioned.
Paul, are you ready for it? Are you ready for college football calls in April?
I have them every day of the year anyway, Greeny, so I'm good.
But do you expect it? Do you believe that if the circumstances are that they cannot play this fall anywhere in America, that it is reasonable and realistic to think there will be a college football season of some sort in the spring?
Yes, and I think it would be easier because, not to sound like Dr. Fauci, but by then there may be a vaccine, therapeutics will be better, and I think the country will be farther along. Right now, what happened yesterday sent a tsunami across this country from a college football standpoint. It may not be an inflection point, but it is the biggest story in sports, and that's saying a great deal.